All right, y'all. What's up? What's going on, man? Today is April the 7th, 2025. Welcome to the podcast with Soul. My name is Sean G. The podcast with Soul, Stigmatism in My Soul, Gumby Publishing. What other companies I have? Nothing that I'm involved with do we wish to defame, libel, or slander anybody as it relates to the publicly available information we're going to be coming from today, which is the federal indictment from the Central District of California of Big U, Mr. Henley, Eugene Henley. We don't wish to defame or engage in defamation. We're going to be coming straight from the court paperwork, and let's get it going. So, Big U has been indicted, federally indicted, October 2024, grand jury. The case number is 2:25-CR-00211-WLH. Big U is federally indicted under the RICO Act, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Conspiracy. The conspiracy to interfere with commerce by robbery, extortion, transportation across state lines, wire fraud, embezzlement, misapplication of funds, willful failure to file a tax return, income tax, evade and defeat. He's charged with a lot of federal stuff. This is a 75-page document. You could get this online at Pacer. I think Big U is still being held in custody by the feds in California. In this indictment, and I've gone over a lot of this already, they encapsulate all things that Big U is involved in as the Big U enterprise. They have the umbrella. The big umbrella is Big U enterprise. Under that big umbrella, right, there's subsidiary companies, right? His nonprofit, Gang Reduction Youth Development, the GRID program that he was involved in, which was called Developing Options, right? One, Unique Music, okay? That was another one of his businesses, which was a record label. Two businesses. Eugene Henley personally. Three, what else was he involved in? I think that's it. There may be one other company I'm just forgetting at the time, but what they're doing, and this is similar what they're doing to Puffy, right? Puffy's also charged with racketeering conspiracy, and they have the big umbrella of Combs Global, right? And underneath Combs Global is Bad Boy Entertainment, his liquor business, his media company, anything associated with the ringleader of this RICO, is going to be captured under the Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organizations Conspiracy. Now, we went over this. Big U's nonprofit. Big U also had a podcast, right? His media podcast. That's also under there. Big U was involved in the GRID program, Gang Reduction Youth Development. And in conjunction with that, he received, his nonprofit was granted $550,000 yearly from around 2018 up until 2023, in excess of $2.3 million over the course of those, what is that, 5 years or 6 years, whatever the number is. And they mentioned in the indictment, as a condition to receiving those funds, even though those funds were from the city of Los Angeles under the county of LA, they've tied in that some other funds that he got, or maybe even those funds themselves, were federally funded, which brings in the bank fraud charge he's got, wire fraud charges he's got, embezzlement charges he's got under the RICO. What else? I'm coming off the top of the dome, but we're gonna get into the money right here. So, as a condition to receiving this money, developing options, or Big U, needed to adhere to certain policies and procedures in this handbook. Background checks for all employees, submitting a budget, being involved in meetings that included the Los Angeles Police Department. There was a bunch of things he needed to do to continue to receive those funds. One of his things for developing options was the Crenshaw Rams youth football. There's a couple of other things that he was doing under developing options. Now, let's get into it. This is page 3 of 75. The City of Los Angeles, a unit of local government in Los Angeles County within the Central District of California, awarded developing options an annual $550,000 grant, which was federally funded as part of the City of Los Angeles Gang Reduction Youth Development Program, the GRID program. From on or about July 1st, 2018 to on or about June 30th, 2023, developing options was allotted $2,352,000 from the mayor's office of the City of Los Angeles. Defendant Henley's duties and responsibilities as Chief Executive Officer of Developing Options included ensuring that Developing Options remained in compliance with its contract with the City of Los Angeles and the Mayor's Office, which included providing a budget, hiring and compensation of employees, complying with general reporting requirements of the contract, and otherwise serving as the leader of Developing Options. Now, here is count 1 of his RICO indictment. 18 U.S.C. Section 1962:D. The Big U Enterprise. They talk a lot about in the indictment how extortion was a big part of Big U's game in terms of intimidation, fear, his fame, and his history of being an OG, part of the Rolling 60 neighborhood Crips in Los Angeles, his status within that gang, his ability to create fear and use these types of things to further his criminal activity. They also talked about in here, he had a policy called checking in. Anybody that wanted to do any kind of business in Los Angeles, because he said that he controlled Los Angeles, needed to check in with him. And if you chose not to check in, there would be consequences. They talk about that extensively in here. That's really the underpinning of their indictment. Now, this is the part. In this On page 10 of 75, the racketeering conspiracy. Okay? Page 10 of 75, the racketeering conspiracy. These are the charges embedded under the umbrella of the racketeering conspiracy on the federal indictment. It's multiple acts. Number one, murder, chargeable under Nevada revised statutes. Kidnapping, chargeable under Nevada revised statutes. Robbery, extortion, wire fraud, financial institution fraud, interference in commerce, robbery, and extortion, interstate transportation for the purpose of men and women getting together. So, the murder and the kidnapping are referenced in the federal indictment under the racketeering charge. But what I'm curious to know, there's a chance that he may also be charged separately by the state of Nevada for the murder and the kidnapping of Rashawn Williams. And they talk about that extensively in here. Defendant Big U arranged for the victim, Rashawn Williams, to record at a music studio in Las Vegas and then confronted the victim, Rashawn Williams, for lack of production. So, what they talk about is that in or around January of 2021, Big U arranged for Rashawn Williams to fly from Los Angeles to Las Vegas to go out there exclusively to record music under his record label, Unique Music. He arranged for Rashawn Williams to stay at an Airbnb, arranged for his flights, arranged with a Grammy-winning studio producer in Las Vegas to let Rashawn Williams use his recording studio. And Rashawn was slated to be in Vegas from January 19th to January 26th, 7 days. Around the 22nd to 23rd, Big U, along with another gentleman, jump in their car, leave Los Angeles, and go to Las Vegas to confront Rashawn Williams for a lack of production on the music tip. They confront Rashawn Williams. Rashawn Williams gets in the car with them. They go back to the Airbnb. Rashawn Williams packs up his clothes. They leave. Big U turns off his cell phone, puts it on airplane mode per the court document, so that he can no longer, his cell phone can no longer be pinged to any cell phone towers. This is around, they confront him like about 1 o'clock in the morning, and he's with Rashawn Williams for about an hour and a half, turns off his cell phone, puts it on airplane mode so he can't be picked up by cell phone towers. They drive out on Interstate 15 in Las Vegas by some landfill. This is where they find Rashawn Williams' body with multiple gunshot wounds to the head. And after Big U returns, leaves Rashawn Williams' body allegedly is left in the Vegas desert. Big U returns back to the studio and tells the studio engineer that he was at the gym. He confiscates all of the security equipment, surveillance equipment at the studio, cameras, recordings, anything, confiscates all of that and tells the producer not to talk to anybody in relation to Rashawn Williams. including law enforcement. Um, and then they leave. And and this is Rashawn Williams is murdered. In January 2021, Big U, using his influence and reputation of the Big U Enterprise, arranged for Rashawn Williams to record music at a studio owned by a Grammy-winning producer. In January 2021, Big U arranged for Rashawn Williams' air travel to Las Vegas on January 19th and expected return to LA on January 26, 2021. Big U arranged for Rashawn Williams' lodging at an Airbnb from January 21 to January 26 so that Rashawn Williams could record music at the studio on behalf of Unique Music. On January 23rd, Big U drove from Los Angeles to Vegas in a Lexus sedan to confront Rashawn Williams about his lack of production. On January 24th, at approximately 2 a.m., Big U arrived at the Airbnb in the sedan and asked Rashawn Williams why had he not been in the studio the previous day, wasting Big U's time and money and disrespecting Unique Music. Then here it says, Big U kidnapped and murdered Rashawn Williams for perceived disrespect to the Big U Enterprise. On January 24th, 2021, Big U arrived in a sedan at the studio where Rashawn Williams was scheduled to record a song. On January 24th, 2021, at the direction of Big U, Rashawn Williams recorded a song at the studio before midnight. So, Big U made Rashawn Williams record a song before midnight. Midnight comes, so now it's January 25th. At approximately 12:58 a.m., Big U's two phones stopped reporting location data, indicating that they were turned off or placed in airplane mode while in the vicinity of the studio. On January 25th, Big U drove Rashawn Williams from the studio back to the Airbnb in the Lexus sedan. On January 25th, at around 1:20 in the morning, Rashawn Williams left the Airbnb with his suitcase packed and got into the car with Big U. One day before Rashawn Williams' scheduled checkout from the Airbnb and one day before Rashawn Williams' return flight to LA. On January 25th, Big U drove Rashawn Williams north of Las Vegas on Interstate 15 near the Apex Regional Landfill. On January 25th, Big U drove south on Interstate 15 back to Las Vegas. On January 25th, at approximately 2:15 in the morning, Big U's two phones both began reporting location data again, indicating that they were turned on or taken out of airplane mode while defendant Henley was continuing to drive south from Interstate 15 to US 95 back to Vegas. On January 25th, Big U called another co-defendant who was still at the studio. This was at 2:20 in the morning. At 2:30 in the morning, Big U returned to the studio, telling an employee at the studio that he had gone to the gym. On January 2015, on January 25th, 2021, Rashawn Williams' body was found off Interstate 15 with multiple gunshot wounds to the head. On January 25th, 2021, Big U contacted the producer to inform him that Nevada homicide detectives would be interviewing the producer about the death of Rashawn Williams. On January 26th, Big U contacted the producer, this is a day later, and demanded that the producer and his employees leave the studio. On January 26th, 2021, Big U removed portions of the security system from the studio, including security video and data from the times victim Rashawn Williams and Big U were present at the studio before Rashawn Williams' murder. On January 27th, 2021, Big U asked the Airbnb owner if there were any cameras on the property, and he directed the account to book. He directed the owner of the Airbnb not to speak to law enforcement about Rashawn's murder. So, the murder of Rashawn Williams is in this federal indictment. And they got Big U on wiretaps. They got him on wiretaps. So this is the federal indictment. They got Big U all the way up to 2023 trying to evade law enforcement as they seek to gather information about the murder of Rashawn Williams. They got Big U on wiretaps talking on the phone that nobody in the game can stand up to him. It's just not good. It's just not good. If they, I don't know how this is gonna go with him, with Big U, but the murder is under the RICO umbrella. But I wonder if he could be convicted on the RICO with the murder underneath, and then Nevada still try him for murder, right? Or will they drop the murder and kidnapping under the federal indictment because they still got enough other stuff on him, and then convict him, give him maybe 20 years on the federal joint, and then ship him to Las Vegas to face state charges on murder and kidnapping of Rashawn Williams, where once he's done with the federal sentence, he'd have to go do the state sentence. So let's see what happens. You can follow me on Spotify, The Podcast Was Sold, Instagram, The Podcast Was Sold. Peace.